In the small village of Greenfield, a close-knit and warm community, everyone eagerly awaited the annual church event, the celebration of the feast of Saint Francis of Assisi, the patron saint of animals. It was a special moment for all the villagers, who came from far and wide to participate in the festivities and bring their pets to receive the blessing. The village's cobblestone streets were adorned with colorful ribbons, and the scent of fresh flowers filled the air as people gathered in the churchyard, decorated with floral arches and old wooden benches. The Church of St. Mary of Graces, located at the heart of Greenfield, was the central symbol of this community. Its ivy-covered stone walls and the bell that echoed through the village brought a sense of peace and belonging. Father Michael, known for his kindness and compassion, was in charge of the celebration. He was loved by everyone, especially the children, who saw him as a fatherly figure. His soft yet firm voice conveyed comfort and security to all who heard him. On that sunny morning, the villagers began to arrive, bringing their dogs, cats, birds, and even rabbits, all ready to be blessed. Among the many families that arrived at the church was Sarah and her 8-year-old daughter, Emily. Emily was a sweet and dreamy girl with a huge heart, especially when it came to animals. She had been waiting for weeks for this day, as she would finally be able to bring her rabbit, Snowball, to receive Father Michael's blessing. Emily had lost her father 2 years ago, and since then, Snowball had become her inseparable companion, bringing her comfort in moments of sadness. The celebration began with an outdoor mass, where Father Michael spoke about the importance of caring for animals, our life companions, who offer us unconditional love. His words deeply touched the hearts of those present, especially Emily, who lovingly hugged Snowball against her chest, feeling grateful to have him in her life. However, as the Mass continued, something unexpected happened. Amid the crowd, a small white kitten with black patches around its eyes appeared. It seemed lost, fragile, and looked around with frightened eyes as if searching for something or someone. The kitten timidly walked between the villagers' legs until it reached the altar, where it stopped and looked directly at Father Michael, as if asking for help. Silence fell over the crowd as everyone noticed the small feline's presence. Father Michael, surprised, bent down and extended his hand to the kitten, who immediately approached and began to purr, rubbing against the priest. It was as if this little creature had found a safe haven amidst the confusion. Father Michael, with an affectionate smile, picked up the kitten and presented it to the congregation. "It seems we have a new friend among us," he said with a soft laugh that echoed through the churchyard. "This little kitten appears to be looking for a home." Emily's eyes sparkled as she saw the kitten in Father Michael's arms. She hesitantly approached, still holding Snowball, and looked up at Father Michael. "He seems so lost," Emily said softly. "May I hold him, Father?" Father Michael smiled and gently placed the kitten in Emily's arms. The kitten, who initially seemed scared, instantly relaxed in the girl's embrace as if it had found exactly what it was looking for. It snuggled into Emily, who looked at her mother with hopeful eyes. Sarah, watching the scene, felt a pang in her heart. She knew how much Emily had grown attached to Snowball after her father's loss, and now it seemed that fate had brought this little kitten into their lives for a reason. As the ceremony continued, the kitten stayed close to Emily, as if it were already part of her family. When the Mass ended, and the villagers began to disperse, Emily still held the kitten, who seemed unwilling to leave. Father Michael, noticing the connection between the girl and the feline, approached and said, "Emily, it looks like this little friend has found a home with you. What do you think about taking him home?" Emily looked at her mother, who, after a brief moment of reflection, nodded with a smile. "I think he would be a lovely addition to our family," Sarah said, moved by her daughter's happiness. And so, with her heart full of joy, Emily decided to take the kitten home. She didn't know it yet, but that little creature was about to change her life in ways she could never have imagined. The journey home was filled with excitement and curiosity. Emily couldn't stop talking about the little kitten, whom she had decided to name Whiskers because of his long, thin whiskers that stood out on his face. Sarah, though happy for her daughter, couldn't help but feel a bit concerned. It was already challenging to manage the household and care for Emily and Snowball. Now, with another animal, the responsibilities would increase. Still, the smile on Emily's face made any doubts disappear. When they arrived home, a modest wooden house with a small front garden, Emily rushed to her room, where she prepared an improvised bed for Whiskers with some soft blankets. The kitten, who seemed exhausted, soon curled up and fell asleep, leaving Emily enchanted by the serenity he exuded. In the days that followed, Whiskers proved to be a calm yet mysterious companion. He was affectionate, following Emily everywhere and always purring softly when she was nearby. However, there was something different about him. Sometimes, he would sit by the window, gazing out at the horizon as if waiting for someone or something. Emily noticed this behavior, and although she tried to distract Whiskers with toys and cuddles, the kitten seemed to always return to his silent watchfulness. One afternoon, while Sarah was preparing dinner in the kitchen, Emily decided to take Whiskers for a walk in the garden. She placed a small collar on the kitten and opened the front door, allowing him to explore the surroundings. Whiskers, initially hesitant, began to walk around the garden, sniffing the flowers and watching the birds fluttering about. Emily smiled, pleased to see her new friend so curious and at ease. However, during the walk, Whiskers suddenly stopped, his eyes fixed on something beyond the garden. He began tugging on the collar in the direction of the road, as if drawn by an invisible force. Emily, surprised by the sudden change in behavior, tried to hold on to the kitten, but Whiskers, usually so calm, began to get agitated, trying to break free from the collar. "What's wrong, Whiskers?" Emily asked, concerned as she struggled to keep him under control. Whiskers meowed restlessly, his eyes never leaving the road that led out of town. Sarah, who had been watching from the kitchen window, noticed the commotion and came outside to help Emily. "What's happening?" Sarah asked as she approached. "I don't know, Mom. He just got upset all of a sudden," Emily replied, trying to soothe the kitten. Sarah looked at the road and then at Whiskers, who continued to try to follow the path out of the village. Something seemed to be troubling the little feline, and it made Sarah uneasy. She knelt beside Emily and carefully picked up Whiskers. "It's okay, Whiskers. You're safe here," she said, trying to calm him. Whiskers stopped struggling, but his gaze remained fixed on the road as if he was trying to convey something no one could understand. Sarah and Emily exchanged worried looks. Something was clearly bothering the kitten, but they didn't know what it was. That night, as Emily was getting ready for bed, she noticed that Whiskers was restless, pacing back and forth in her room. He would occasionally stop at the window, staring at the same spot on the road before continuing to walk. Emily sat on her bed and called out to him, lightly tapping the mattress beside her. "Come here, Whiskers. Let's go to sleep." The kitten looked at her and for a moment seemed undecided, but then climbed onto the bed and snuggled up next to Emily. She gently stroked his back, trying to convey calm. However, Emily's heart was uneasy. She couldn't understand why Whiskers was so distressed. As Whiskers finally fell asleep beside her, Emily closed her eyes and tried to focus on happy thoughts, as she usually did when she was worried. But that night was different. There was a sense of uncertainty hanging in the air, and Emily couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. In the days that followed, Whiskers' behavior became even stranger. He started refusing to eat and spent hours by the window, staring intently at the road. Emily tried everything to cheer him up, but nothing seemed to work. The connection between the two, which had been so strong at the beginning, now seemed weakened by the growing emotional distance that Whiskers seemed to create. Worried about the situation, Sarah decided to take Whiskers to the local veterinarian. Dr. Collins, an elderly man with gray hair and a gentle expression, carefully examined Whiskers. After a few minutes of analysis, he looked at Sarah and Emily with a concerned expression. "There's nothing physically wrong with Whiskers," he said, handing the kitten back to Emily. "He seems healthy, but something is deeply troubling him. It could be some trauma or a past situation that he hasn't yet overcome." Sarah and Emily left the clinic with more questions than answers. If it wasn't something physical, then what could be causing Whiskers so much distress? Emily's concern grew with each passing day, and she felt helpless in her inability to help her friend. That night, as Sarah tucked Emily into bed, she tried to reassure her daughter despite her own worries. "We'll figure out what's going on, Emily. Don't worry. Whiskers will be okay," she said, kissing her daughter's forehead. Emily nodded, but her heart was heavy. She looked at Whiskers, who was once again sitting by the window, as if waiting for something or someone to appear. She knew something was wrong, but she didn't know what to do to help her friend. And so the days passed, with Whiskers becoming more distant and troubled, and Emily becoming more determined to discover what had happened to him. The small village of Greenfield, which once seemed like such a safe and welcoming place, now seemed to hide a mystery that no one could unravel. Emily's anguish grew with each passing day, and Whiskers, who had once been a source of joy, now seemed to be fading before her eyes. The girl spent hours watching him, trying to find some sign, some clue that could explain what was happening. However, the little feline remained absorbed in his own thoughts, always looking at the road with a distant gaze, as if waiting for something or someone that never arrived. It was on a rainy afternoon, when the sky was heavy with dark clouds, that the situation reached its peak. Sarah was in the kitchen, preparing hot soup, while Emily and Whiskers were in the living room. The rain drummed on the roof, creating a comforting sound, but the atmosphere inside the house was far from peaceful. Emily watched Whiskers, who was once again sitting by the window, and something inside her told her that this day would be different. Suddenly, a thunderclap echoed through the village, and at the same moment, Whiskers jumped from the window, running toward the door. He began to meow desperately, scratching at the door with an urgency Emily had never seen before. Frightened, she ran to open the door, and Whiskers dashed outside, as if he were being guided by an irresistible force. "Whiskers, come back!" Emily shouted, running after him. Sarah heard the shouts and ran to the door, only to see Emily disappearing into the rain behind the kitten. Her heart raced, and without thinking twice, she grabbed a coat and followed her daughter. The rain was pouring heavily, soaking the streets and forming small puddles on the ground. Emily, however, didn't care about the rain. Her only concern was to catch up with Whiskers, who was running down the cobblestone road, completely ignoring the girl's calls. Finally, Whiskers stopped in front of an old abandoned house at the edge of the village. The house was in ruins, with broken windows and peeling paint, giving it a frightening appearance. Whiskers, however, seemed unconcerned about the state of the place. He sat at the entrance, meowing incessantly, as if he were calling for someone. Emily, panting and soaked, arrived just behind Whiskers. She looked at the house apprehensively, feeling a chill run down her spine. Sarah, who arrived shortly after, stood beside her daughter, observing the scene with her heart in her throat. "What's happening, Emily?" Sarah asked, trying to make sense of the situation. I don't know, Mom. He just ran here. It seems like he's waiting for someone, or something." Emily replied, confused. Suddenly, a faint sound came from inside the house. It was a meow, almost imperceptible, but it made Whiskers immediately stand up, running into the abandoned house. Emily and Sarah exchanged a quick glance before following the kitten. The house was dark and damp, with the smell of mold permeating the air. The floorboards creaked under their feet as they cautiously walked, following the sound of the meows. In the back of the house, in a corner hidden by debris, they found the source of the meows. There was a small wooden box, partially covered by an old piece of cloth. Inside it, 3 tiny newborn kittens squirmed and meowed, clearly hungry and desperate. Whiskers was next to the box, gently licking the kittens and meowing back at them as if trying to comfort them. "Oh my God," Sarah murmured, kneeling beside the box. "They're so tiny." Emily, her heart racing, slowly approached and looked at the kittens. They were so fragile, their tiny bodies trembling with cold and fear. Whiskers seemed completely focused on the kittens, as if his mission was finally accomplished. Emily then realized the truth. Whiskers wasn't just lost, he was searching for his family. He was trying to show us this the whole time, Emily said, her eyes welling up with tears. Whiskers is the father of these kittens. He wanted to find them. Sarah remained silent, absorbing what was happening. The love and concern that Whiskers showed for those tiny beings were evident. He had done everything he could to find them, even if it meant sacrificing his own well-being. The connection between Whiskers and the kittens was undeniable. With tears in her eyes, Emily knelt beside Whiskers and gently petted his head. "You did a great job, Whiskers. Let's take them all home. They'll be safe now," Emily said softly. Sarah looked around the abandoned house, trying to understand how the kittens had ended up there. It was clear that their mother was nowhere to be found, and the little ones urgently needed care. She made a quick but firm decision. "Emily, let's take these kittens home. We need to take care of them, and Whiskers too. He's finally found what he was looking for, and now it's our turn to help them." Emily nodded, wiping away her tears. She helped her mother pick up the box with the kittens, while Whiskers followed closely, as if ensuring nothing bad happened to his family. The walk back home was silent, except for the sound of the rain still falling, now softer, as if the sky was also relieved by the reunion. When they arrived home, Sarah prepared an improvised bed for the kittens, with warm blankets and warm milk. Whiskers didn't leave his kitten's side, staying close to them, purring protectively. Emily watched everything with a mix of relief and happiness. Finally, Whiskers seemed at peace, and the kittens, now safe, snuggled into their new home. That night, as Sarah tucked Emily into bed, both knew that what they had witnessed was something special. Whiskers had shown unwavering devotion to his family, and now they were part of something bigger, something that transcended words. "Mom, I'm so happy Whiskers found the kittens. He's an amazing father," Emily said, her eyes heavy with sleep. "Yes, he is, dear. And you were very brave today. I'm sure Whiskers and the kittens are grateful that we found them," Sarah replied, kissing her daughter's forehead. Emily smiled, slowly closing her eyes. She knew that from that day on, her life would never be the same. Whiskers had not only brought new members to the family, but also a lesson about love and devotion that she would never forget. The days following the discovery of the kittens were intense for Sarah and Emily, but also filled with love and care. The small house, once quiet, was now filled with soft meows and purring. Whiskers, always vigilant, never left the kitten's side, watching over them with the same dedication he had shown in finding them. Sarah prepared warm milk and ensured the kittens had what they needed, while Emily spent hours by their side, fascinated by each little movement. The first challenge they faced was ensuring the kittens gained strength. They were extremely fragile, and any negligence could be fatal. Sarah, who had never cared for such young kittens, began consulting Dr. Collins regularly. He guided her on the best way to feed them and keep them warm. With the veterinarian's support and Sarah and Emily's determination, the little kittens began to gain weight and show signs of improvement. Whiskers, for his part, seemed more at ease now that his family was safe. He still spent long hours watching over the kittens, but he also began to resume his routine of affection with Emily. Whenever she sat on the couch, Whiskers would climb into her lap, purring and rubbing his head against the girl, as if thanking her for everything she had done for him and his family. One morning, while Sarah was preparing breakfast, Emily came into the kitchen with Whiskers by her side. The kittens were starting to explore the house, albeit timidly, and one of them, the smallest of all, had begun to follow Whiskers everywhere. "Mom, do you think they'll be okay?" Emily asked, watching the tiny kitten trying to imitate Whiskers. Sarah smiled and knelt beside her daughter, running her hand through her hair. "Yes, sweetheart, they'll be okay. In time, they'll grow strong and healthy. And we'll be here to take care of them," Sarah replied, her voice full of tenderness. Emily nodded, feeling relieved. The responsibility of caring for the kittens had been a challenge, but had also brought a new dimension of love and purpose to their lives. Each day, the kittens grew stronger and more playful, filling the house with energy and joy. They also began to develop distinct personalities, which delighted Emily even more. The bond between Whiskers and his kittens was something that deeply touched everyone who witnessed it. Sarah often found herself watching the interaction between them, marveling at how the little kitten who had come into her life so lost and desperate now proved to be a dedicated and loving father. To Sarah, this was a powerful reminder of the instinct and capacity for love that all living beings possess. As time passed, the kittens became an integral part of the household routine. They ran around the garden, exploring every corner and discovering the world alongside Emily and Whiskers. The little family had grown, and with it, everyone's hearts in the house seemed bigger and more filled with love. One afternoon, as Emily played with the kittens in the garden, Sarah joined her, bringing a tray with lemonade and cookies. They sat on the grass, watching the little kittens chase each other around. Whiskers lay beside Emily, with a serene, almost proud look, as he watched his kittens so happy. "Mom, I think Whiskers is the best dad in the world," Emily said, taking a sip of lemonade. Sarah smiled and agreed, feeling a peace within her that she hadn't experienced in a long time. "I think you're right, Emily. Whiskers is a wonderful father. And you're a great helper. I'm sure he's very grateful for everything you've done." Emily smiled, happy with her mother's words. There was something special about caring for a life, seeing love and care transform fear and uncertainty into safety and joy. To her, Whiskers and his kittens were more than just pets. They were part of her family, and the love they shared was something she would never forget. As the days passed, life in Sarah and Emily's house returned to normal, but with a new addition of joy. The kittens grew strong and healthy, thanks to the love and care they received. Whiskers continued to be the dedicated father, always by his kitten's side, teaching them and protecting them. Emily, for her part, felt that she had learned something very important. What began as a simple act of bringing a kitten home had turned into a life lesson about responsibility, compassion, and unconditional love. And whenever she looked at Whiskers and his kittens, she knew she had been blessed with something very special. Time passed, and the small village of Greenfield continued its peaceful and welcoming routine. Life in Sarah and Emily's home, now filled with the lively presence of the kittens, also went on, but with a special glow that hadn't been there before. The family had grown, and with it, the love and bond between them also strengthened with each passing day. The kittens, once so fragile, were now strong and full of energy. Each of them developed a unique personality, but they all shared the same adventurous and playful spirit. Whiskers, for his part, continued to play his role as a loving and protective father, watching over each step of his kittens, while still finding time to cuddle on Emily's lap, where he always felt at home. One afternoon, as the sun began to set, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink, Sarah, Emily, Whiskers, and the kittens gathered in the garden. The air was fresh and calm, and the scene was perfect. The kittens ran and played among the flowers, while Whiskers watched with a careful and proud gaze. Sarah and Emily sat on the grass, side by side, watching the joyful chaos that the little kittens were causing in the garden. It was a moment of pure happiness, a memory that both knew they would cherish forever. "Mom, do you think Whiskers knew everything would be okay?" Emily asked, her voice reflective. Sarah looked at her daughter and then at Whiskers, who was now lying on the grass, watching his kittens with serenity. "I believe so, Emily. Sometimes, animals have a wisdom that we humans don't always understand." Whiskers knew what needed to be done, and he did everything he could to take care of his family. And now, thanks to him, we have a new family here at home. Emily smiled, feeling a sense of peace and fulfillment. Everything they had gone through, all the doubts and worries, now made sense. Whiskers, with his courage and determination, had shown everyone the true meaning of love and devotion. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Sarah turned to Emily and embraced her. "I'm so proud of you, my dear. You were so strong and brave through all of this. We've learned so much from Whiskers and the kittens, haven't we?" "Yes, Mom," Emily replied, returning the hug. "We've learned that love is stronger than any fear or doubt, and that when we take care of those we love, everything can turn out right in the end." Sarah smiled, her eyes filled with emotion. The journey they had taken with Whiskers had transformed not just their lives, but also their hearts. There was something magical about how the little lost kitten had brought so much love and learning into their lives. As night fell, Emily picked up Whiskers and hugged him warmly. "I love you, Whiskers. Thank you for being the best dad and the best friend anyone could have." Whiskers, as if he understood perfectly, purred softly, snuggling into Emily's arms. The kittens, now tired from playing so much, cuddled up next to Sarah, who watched them with a loving smile. And so, under the starry sky of Greenfield, with a gentle night breeze caressing their faces, Sarah, Emily, Whiskers, and the kittens enjoyed a moment of pure peace and gratitude. They knew that, no matter what the future might bring, they would always be together, united by the love that had found them in that small church and that would now accompany them forever. The story of Whiskers and his kittens was not just about the search for a lost family. It was a lesson about love, resilience, and the importance of never giving up on those we love. And as the stars shone brightly in the sky above, Sarah and Emily knew that this was just the beginning of a life full of love and adventures with their new friends.